Hello, it's Mr. Ripka, reading Neruda during Corona. We have reached poem 44. 44, it's a good time to just remind ourselves about this little work and what Neruda's plan is, perhaps. So I want to read this little portion at the beginning, written by the editor and translator. That just kind of gives us a good reminder of the beauty of these questions. It says, in the Book of Questions, El Libro de las Preguntas, Pablo Neruda refuses to be corralled by the rational mind. Composed entirely of unanswerable couplets, the poems integrate the wonder of a child with the experiences of an adult. Whether comic, surreal, or orphic, Neruda's poignant questions lead the reader beyond reason into realms of sudden intuition and pure imagination. It's always good to reread that every once in a while to really remind us what he's doing here. And I wanted to read it specifically today because today the poems, the questions, have to do in a way with two worlds again. So yesterday we talked about the world of the dream world and the gap that exists between that and the waking world, and how his poetry tries to bridge that gap in a way by creating some surreal images. It's much like if you think of Salvador Dali's paintings with the melting clocks. It's a bridge between the waking world and the sleeping world. And so here, though, it says, I wanted to read that we're dealing with another two worlds here, much like the waking and the sleeping world. But here it's the two worlds of childhood and sort of the loss of childhood or adulthood. Those being two worlds, and how there's perhaps there feels like sometimes a gulf between those two worlds. And so I wanted to reread that beginning because it says, composed entirely of unanswerable couplets, the poems integrate the wonder of a child with the experiences of an adult. And the poems today, the questions today, have to do with the world of the child and the experience of the adult. Okay, let's go ahead and begin with the questions in Español. ¿Dónde está el niño que yo fui? ¿Sigue adentro de mí o se fue? ¿Sabe que no lo quise nunca y que tampoco me querría? ¿Por qué anduvimos tanto tiempo creciendo para separarnos? ¿Por qué no morimos los dos cuando mi infancia se murió? Y si el alma se me cayó, ¿por qué me sigue el esqueleto? Yes. So here we go. Once again, these questions that have to do with sort of two worlds. In a way, the childhood kind of seems in a way like a dream world when you're an adult. You think back and you're like, that seems like a dream almost. Who was that person? So here we are, the first question. It says, where is the child that I was? Still inside me or gone? ¿Dónde está el niño que yo fui? Number 2, does he know that I never loved him and that he never loved me? That sounds sad in a way, doesn't it? But I guess because there's that gap in the child living almost seems like a dream of so long ago. And who was that person? How could, of course, that child even love me, who's a whole different person, or am I? All right, number 3, why did we spend so much time growing up only to separate? Wow. Number 4. Why did we both not die when my childhood died? And number 5. And why does my skeleton pursue me if my soul has fallen away? Glorious questions about, once again, the childhood world and the adult world, and this gap that seems to exist as we get older and look back in a similar way as I'm trying to point out today, of the gap between the dream world and the waking world. You have the gap of the child world and the adult world, and somehow Neruda's poetry and other surrealists, their goal is to bridge these gaps. And that's what these questions perhaps were about, bridging that gap between the past, which seems like a dream, and the present, which perhaps seems like reality. So let's go through the questions one more time, just so you can feel the rhythm, because sometimes they reference the previous one. And here we go. Where is the child that I was? Still inside me or gone? Does he know that I never loved him and that he never loved me? Why did we spend so much time growing up only to separate? And why did we both not die when my childhood died? And why does my skeleton pursue me if my soul has fallen away? Wonderful, great questions by Pablo Neruda for all of us to think about. It's always a joy to reflect about the childhood and to see how far we've come since then. But perhaps these questions can also help us not to forget, though there's a gap between our childhood and our adult life, there is an intimate connection there too. And with that, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow for some more Ripka Reads Neruda during Corona.